Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I am doing fabulous. We signed Eleanor up. I think I talked about this, but we signed her up for the swim school and we've gone twice. So we went this past weekend and the weekend before. So it's every Sunday for like 6 or 8 weeks.
Hmm.
It's pretty long, I think. I don't know how long they normally are, but the first time we took her, she was so hype, like so hype. So we like get to the pool area and she sees the pool. She does this thing where she like tenses her body and like goes like, "Yeah!" So she saw the pool and was so freaking excited. And then the whole time in the pool, she was just having a like blast. And then she saw all these balls. So every minute she's like, "Ball, ball, ball." And then this past weekend, told her, I was like, "Oh, we get to go swimming in the pool again." And she's like, "Yay." And then she said, "Ball." Like she was already so excited to like play with the ball. It was really cute. We've been having a lot of fun. Rob and I are switching off every time to take her. So it's nice being able to like each have time swimming with her, and we're trying to connect with like some of the other parents there. The thing is Eleanor is a little bit on the older side because this class, I think, is 6 months to 18 months,
Mm.
and so a lot of the babies are more 6 to 9 months. I think there's, like, 2 others that are closer to her age, but it's fun. I'm hoping the more we do things like this, the more we can connect with, like, other parents. We also had, like, a little play date for Eleanor,
Oh
um,
yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
yeah, yeah, so it was like a family we've been connecting with just over social media who has a child similar in age to Eleanor, so we thought it would be good to, like, bring them together, so they came over to our house, and Eleanor and the other baby toddler, I guess her toddler is now, were were playing. I mean, she had a really great time. It's just interesting because they didn't interact as much
Mm.
as I was expecting, but they did kind of, like, interact. I don't know, it was interesting, but she definitely had a good time. She napped so well after they left.
Oh,
But it was fun. It was good.
well,
Yeah.
that's good. Axel, when he plays with like Remy, because Remy's like almost 3. Oh my gosh, I can't believe he's almost 3 at the end of May. So there's a larger age gap, but like I thought that they would interact more, and obviously Remy's at the age where he wants to interact more, and Axel's just like, okay, I'll look at you and play with you for a minute, and then go off to the side. So it's just interesting at their age right now, like how they interact with others.
Yeah, it's different because I've noticed Eleanor seems to be really good with older kids who can communicate. So older kids who like engage with her and give her that one-on-one. Like when we went to Georgia and she was playing with her cousin Jenna, who is 6, I believe, 6, 7. So they were engaging and Eleanor loved her. And I think the fact that like her and the other toddler were so young that they weren't like engaging in that way. And Eleanor's all about language. So I think there was kind of like that disconnect, which I just thought they would like sit and play with stuff like she does with us. But, they played at the water table together. It was funny. She was sitting in a car and he like pushed her around a little bit in the car because he can walk and she can't yet. So, I mean, it was cute. It was just definitely different. It's something I want to do more for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I love seeing like Axel with Hudson and Scarlett because of like they're so close in age, and like they'll just like sit there, like grab the toy from each other. They're not like really interacting, but they're kind of in a way. It's funny.
Yeah. It is funny.
But yeah, we've had a lot going on. We went on vacation, so that was really good overall, but very difficult because Axel was sick, Austin got sick, and I just felt like we were at this place where I was supposed to be enjoying our time and enjoying vacation, and Axel was just
Yeah.
miserable. Like, so note to self, taking babies on airplanes that have ear infections make it worse.
Ooh, I didn't think about that.
I did not know that. So he was so sleepy on the airplane on the way there, and I was like, this is weird. But it was because he was in pain, because on the way back he was fine because we gave him Motrin. But he vomited in the car on the way to the place we were staying, and I'm now thinking that was because of the ear infection, because of the flights and like the pain and everything. So at first I was like, did he get sick again?
Yeah, seriously.
but but yeah. So overall it was good. We did end up at urgent care. We had to get a different antibiotic because the antibiotic we had did not kick the double ear infection. This one seems to be helping.
Yay.
Slowly but surely, we're slowly getting over the cold. And we also just randomly decided to move because we did get occupancy in our house. So, hey, let's do everything. So, yeah, my house is a mess. It has everything everywhere. And it's very anxiety producing for me as a mother because I want everything to be put away. I want to be able to pick out clothes for my baby. And when I dropped Axel off with my mom this morning, she's like, "This is a cute outfit," because it's
Oh,
like
no.
one of those short onesie things, and it's green with like blue striped pants. And I was like, "This is all I have. This is all I could find this morning." So yeah, that's what's going on with us.
That's a lot. Moving is a lot on top of, like, just coming out of vacation, your kid being sick, just having a child, so you need all the stuff that you had to pack to move. I can't imagine. I can't imagine. But how exciting that you're finally in your house. You guys can start unpacking, getting cozy, making
Yeah,
it
it'll take some
home.
time. But yeah, no, it was very refreshing and very calming this morning. So I'm happy about it.
I'm curious, and I wanna keep track on this, like, I mean, Axel's so chill, so he probably doesn't even notice or care, but do you think the change in home affects Axel? Like, do you think sleeping has been more difficult or getting him comfortable in the new place? Like, I wonder if there's gonna be a transition period there.
I didn't notice anything the past couple days. He literally went to sleep perfectly fine. The only thing is we need to put up the room darkening shades. He has been having a hard time where he wakes up at 4 or 5 a.m. because he can't breathe. And I think it's because he's been laying down that it's draining. And then by that time, it's like, so he's so irritated because he wants to sleep, but it's just draining and he can't breathe. So
Yeah.
that's been going on, but I don't know about the house. I didn't notice anything at all yet. The cats, that's a different story. But
Yeah. Oh, the cats, yeah.
so just picture this. Me driving, I have 4 cats. I gave Austin 1. I put 2 cats in like a cardboard box because we didn't have enough cat carriers. I'm driving and all of a sudden I see something like in my rearview mirror, and it's Sophia just crawling around in the back. She got out of her box.
Oh,
And so I'm on the phone with
no. Oh,
Austin
no.
saying, "Hey, Sophia's out of the box." And as soon as I tell him that, Nova comes out of his box and is in the back too. And I'm like, he just comes up, is rubbing his head against me while I'm driving. I'm like, this is great. This is great.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Oh, no.
it's fun. It's fun.
Welcome, everybody, to the Mom Era podcast. My name is Megan.
And I'm Alyssa. Why don't we dive into our topic? We are talking about parental leave today and all the benefits, all the horrible things about it, everything about it. Just kind of digging into what parental leave looks like, what our experiences were, and just some information about in the US in regards to like the lack of maternity leave that there is for mothers nowadays.
Yeah, I'm excited about this topic. We were very lucky with our parental leaves. So I digged into this topic a little bit because I know here in the US, we have very scarce maternity, paternity, and parental leave as a whole. So I was just kind of curious what that looked like. So I found, now they didn't list their sources, but I was reading the Great Places to Work. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. It's like I don't know, like a celebration award type of company that awards great places to work to other companies, and then they can display it. So companies have to like essentially go through this whole vetting process and then they get awarded great place to work. But they had some data points on parental leave that I thought were pretty interesting. So, one of the things was that according to research, at least 6 months of maternity leave is optimal for mothers' physical and mental health, which is so crazy that it's basically suggested that you get like 6 months to a year off. And in the US, we don't get that.
Nope.
So, the 6 months, this period it would be really beneficial for breastfeeding. It helps reduce postpartum depression, helps reduce stress. UNICEF, which stands for United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, they recommend that the 6 months is the ideal time that parents should receive to be able to do that stuff. But the average amount of maternity leave given in the US is 29 days, so around 4 weeks, which is crazy. And then on the other side of things, only 21% of workers in the US have access to paternity leave paid through their employers. And if they are given it, the average is around 17 days. It's crazy because it can take, I think, up to 2 years, they say, for your hormones, your levels to return to pre pregnancy levels. I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of changes within the brain too that take around 2 years to get back to normal. Yet we're like thrown back into work a lot of times 6 to 8 weeks after we give birth.
Yeah, like, hey, here you go back to work. You just had a baby. We do have federal Family Medical Leave Act in the US, which is required to be offered by certain employers. And it offers 12 weeks of unpaid time off with job protection. So for the birthing and the non-birthing parents, that would be maternity or paternity. And that great, it's helpful, three months, but it's unpaid time off, which I think is very difficult for some Americans or people because like they're at home recovering trying to survive having a newborn, and they still need to pay their bills and bring in food and take care of the house, right? So I think that that is very difficult for people that don't have access to paid maternity or paternity leave, paid parental leave. Some companies do offer like short-term disability, but again, that depends on the company, and they can offer to pay, a portion of their salary or even the full salary, but that is solely up to the company. Sometimes, like even too, depending on when the person gets pregnant and when the short-term disability kicks in, it could even be considered like a pre-existing condition if you were pregnant before you started at the company. So there are just so many nits and crannies that can affect short-term disability too when it is allowed from or given to you from a company as a benefit.
Most of the time through short-term disability, you're not given the full coverage of pay through that whole 12 weeks. So a lot of times FMLA and short-term disability are happening in tandem with one another, but short-term disability for vaginal births is often 6 weeks, with the first week being unpaid. So it's called the elimination period. Whereas if you were to have a C section, it's 8 weeks with the first week unpaid. So it's not nearly covering, a lot of times half of the amount of time for FMLA.
Yeah.
I read a book called Invisible Women: Data Bias in a World Designed for Men. The author's name is Caroline Criado Perez. So I read this book. It was really interesting if anybody's a reader like me. But it had talked about just kind of the equality around parental leave. And then they also kind of touched on, men taking leave during that time. And we already talked about it a little bit that men are not offered it as much as women. I mean, women aren't really offered it. So on the flip side, men also are not offered to take time off. But what the data shows and what this book kind of talked about is that men who do take parental leave tend to be more involved in childcare in the future. And she really talked about how if you're starting to co parent right from the beginning, those expectations are built and set that you both are parenting this child, where a lot of times if it's just the woman on maternity leave and she's caring for that child from sunup to sundown for 12 weeks or 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever that time period is, and the dad, or partner, or whoever the second parent is working, they're not setting up that expectation that you are both taking care of the child. So I always thought that was really interesting. After reading that book, it was something that really stuck with me because it totally makes sense that there is this kind of divide in child caring because women, as the birthing people, essentially have to stay home not only to take care of their kid but also to heal, where men, on the other hand, sometimes only take a week or two to do quote unquote bonding, but that is just not enough time to build any type of like anything, in my opinion. So I just thought that was really, really, really interesting. It had always stuck with me. It's a really great book. If anybody's interested, it'll make you infuriated as a woman, but otherwise, great book.
No, no, it sounds very interesting. And I'm just thinking of experiences that I've seen friends or family or even myself go through. That initial period when the baby is born, the mother has this motherly instinct to just know what to do, react, handle it. The father is learning all of that because I guess sometimes they do have that initial reaction, sometimes they don't, but they're building that bond and relationship during that time. Like just with mine and Austin's situation specifically, like he probably could get FMLA, but it would be unpaid. Either way, whenever he's taking time off, it's unpaid. And so there are situations where if the mother is unpaid for that time and healing and the father needs to work, it kind of sucks because people just don't have the opportunity to both be home, receive pay, take care of their baby, build that bonding because probably someone still has to work to pay the bills or pay to take care of the baby. So that's that's hard, but it does like having Austin and I know you having Rob home during those first couple months were like critical for us to kind of navigate parenting in the beginning.
Yeah. And just postpartum too. Especially having a C-section for me, I could not have done it. And I needed Rob longer than 2 weeks or 21 days or whatever the average was. Like, I definitely needed his support. You know how many times I said to Rob during that period, I was like, I don't know how others do this without support. I just don't know how they do it. Like, in women are amazing and they do so much and are capable of so much, but not having that support during that period, I can't imagine it. I can't imagine it.
Mm-mm.
And the thing is that I really like about mine and Rob's relationship and the way we approach parenting is we're very equal. We talk to each other about the decisions we're making about parenting. We approach these things together. We're both very in tune to our child. I never feel any type of way leaving her with him for extended period of time. You know, I've had mostly an older generation, but I've had older generations say, or just people in general say things to me when I'm out of the house. They're like, "Oh, who's taking care of your kid?" And it's like, well, the other parent
Yeah.
is 1,000% capable.
Yeah. No, I've had people say that to me too. They're like, "Where is your son?" I'm like, "With his father." Like it's just that's expectations that I set from the beginning in our relationship, or we both did, that that was just how it was going to be. There was going to be no, you know, one person does everything. So
Same,
another
same.
thing I just wanted to touch on, I wanted to touch on the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, and you told me about this the other day, and it's starting in June of 2024, June 18th, I think, but it's like going back to June of 2023. And when you and I were reading it, there was just a lot of interesting things that were listed in here in terms of like accommodations that employers will have to make going forward for people that are pregnant. And I think this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with parental leave, but it's like leading up to you going on parental leave and being able to have those appointments and like, you know, if you need to take extra breaks or you need to do other things, it's not like counted against potential time that you could use for your leave later on because you're entitled to that accommodation during your pregnancy. But one of them down there is leave to recover from childbirth or medical conditions related to pregnancy or childbirth. So that was just interesting. I would look it up. It's the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, but it just has a lot of topics that are going to be good for pregnant people. And then I was thinking through our parental leave, and before we go into our experiences, I just kind of wanted to touch on the planning in terms of your parental leave, or like having that discussion with your employer. I know for me, like, I always felt like weird telling my employer, like, hey, I'm pregnant. Like, it was just kind of like, I don't know. It was just like, hey, this is going on. But it's important to make sure that they do know. So if you do need accommodations, you can utilize them. But there's so much that goes into planning when you do go out on leave, like fully understanding what leave options you have, and probably a little bit early in case the baby does come early, or planning from a budgeting perspective, understanding what pay you can or can't get from your employer so that you can plan that with your spouse. And I know everyone always says you have time during your pregnancy, but it comes quick. And I think that's just important, instead of waiting till the last minute. I don't know if you have anything to share or add to that.
Yeah. The only thing I would really add is definitely look at your company's policies, because some companies may require you to essentially divulge that information to obtain leave. I think my last job, I think we had to let them know 30 days in advance. 30 days in advance is typical for FMLA, as long as you can give them that amount of notice. But I agree with you. I think that planning period is really beneficial. I was lucky because Rob and I knew from the get go that essentially he was going to stay home. We were going to have to plan essentially. We were going to have to plan financially because we knew after I had the baby, Rob wasn't going to return to work, but we didn't have to plan in terms of after the parental leave. Because I will put out there, I don't know, you took some time to get daycare, but sometimes you need to put in daycare requests like when you get pregnant
Yeah.
because it can take over a year to get in.
Yeah. And even like trying to figure out what life looks like when you do return from parental leave. Like, having daycare is one thing, but who's taking the baby? Who's picking the baby up? What are their hours? Like, what do they feed the baby after 2:30? Do you need to bring extra snacks? Like, so things like that.
I told my mom about that.
Yeah.
I told my mom about how they didn't feed at your daycare after 2:30 because my mom works at a daycare, and I'm like, "Do you not feed after 2:30?" And she's like, "Oh, no, we do." She's like, "We have a snack at did she say 4 and 6?" But yeah, I'm like, "Yeah, they didn't tell her she needed to bring snacks."
Why can't they have a late afternoon snack? Like, if they're open until 6:30, why can't they have a snack at between 2:30 and 6:30? I don't understand.
That is long. But yeah, totally agree. I'm going to dig into my experience with parental leave. I was extremely lucky because I had 16 weeks fully paid parental leave. My company also allowed us to split the time into 3 increments. I didn't do that. I took the full 16 weeks up front, but it was an option if maybe you wanted to take the full 12 weeks, come back for a little bit, finish the rest. I think it all had to just be taken within a year of birth, which is great flexibility. But like I said, I took 16 weeks in its entirety right up front. I knew I was going to do that from the beginning. I just wanted that straight time of bonding. I don't, honestly, after having the experience, I don't think I could have broken it up just because it's a wild ride. um Honestly, I feel like most of that time I was just in survival mode. The newborn stage is challenging because you're constantly feeding them, changing them, getting them to sleep, and then repeating the whole cycle. So my life really just consisted of 3-hour increments. And as a nursing mother, I was in the thick of it because I had to nurse or pump every 2.5 to 3 hours. And I just don't think I could have had the breastfeeding journey that I had if I had to go back to work any sooner. Rob was also there throughout my whole parental leave. Obviously, he ended up being the stay at home dad, but it really did set us up for success. So he was just engulfed in the new world as I was. He was able to understand her cues, he knew how to manage her needs just as much as I did. And he did everything. The same exact stuff I did, he did everything as well, except I guess nursing and pump because biologically he could not. But I didn't I would say that, like, my only expectation that was different than reality, I wouldn't say I expected parental leave to be a vacation by any means, I knew it wasn't going to be, but I also thought I would have been more willing to take advantage of the time. Like, we tossed around the idea of going to Georgia to visit family. We've talked about maybe going on, like, a mini vacation, but the fact that I needed physically and mentally that I was needed physically and mentally, I should say, around the clock, that idea, like, slowly faded for me. So even going out on day trips during that period was difficult because it was always, when am I gonna feed her next? Where am I gonna feed her next? And finding a comfortable place to pump or nurse in public is not easy. And so I was really driven by that schedule. Like I said before, I couldn't imagine going back at 6 to 8 weeks. At 8 weeks, I went back and I looked at my pump log app, which I recorded all my breastfeeding and pumping, and I was still pumping and nursing about 4 to 4.5 hours a day because it would calculate. So I would do like a stop and end. So it would calculate the amount of time I was actually breastfeeding or nursing. So 4.5 hours throughout the whole day is crazy. And I was still doing overnight feeds, overnight pumps. So I think if I had to have gone back to work any sooner, my breastfeeding journey likely would have been much shorter. But overall, I mean, I'm so, 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 so grateful for those 16 weeks. I loved my time with her. I love my baby. It was really everything, being able to bond and not have to split my time with anything else and truly just focus on her for the first 16 weeks. I wish so badly like I could get extensive time like that each year now. I know that's wishful thinking because people don't even get parental leave, but each age and stage of their life just brings such great development and bonding that I often feel like I'm missing out not having like the availability to do that down the road, but having more than 16 weeks would also have been nice. I know some countries like Canada, I think you can get like a year off. That would have been just like I can't imagine being that attentive to her for the full first year and not having to divide my attention. It would have been amazing. But in a nutshell, that was kind of my parental leave experience, and we can kind of talk about other things as we keep going. But I'm curious to hear yours.
Yeah, I was gonna say I remember someone telling me at my last job because they were in Canada and I was in charge of leaves and they were talking about their parental leave and they were like, "Oh yeah, they're coming back like next year," and I was like, I like reacted. I was like, "A year? What?" And they were like, "Is that a problem?" I was like, "No, like I'm so excited for you." I was just like, "This is like great. I'm like I'm so happy that you get that much time off in Canada."
Yeah, you're like, I wish that was me.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So my experience was pretty similar to yours, because we worked at the same company. But I was very fortunate to have 16 weeks of paid parental leave as well. I originally was going to separate it into two increments just with the way that Austin and I scheduled work. And then I decided last minute, not last minute, but I decided to make it the full 16 weeks. And looking back, like Megan said, that is not something that I would change. The full 16 weeks up front was just like immediate need for me. I feel like if I was a father, I might have felt differently, but because I was needed and I was breastfeeding and taking care of the baby. That was just perfect. Perfect for me to have that bonding time. During the early stages, like I did have Austin for about 2 months. He was home. So he was off work during that season, so it wasn't like he was on any parental leave or anything, but he was off work. So that was very beneficial. We operated very equally, I would say, similar to you and Rob, where, we both did different things and took care of the same things at the same time. There was a period, though, in the beginning where I was like, Austin was taking care of the baby and I was just pumping around the clock. And that was, I've talked about it before, but also that timing in which I had gone through that, like, shock, you know? Okay, so I had him home for 2 months. He didn't have parental leave, but it was very beneficial. I feel like if I was also operating in 3-hour increments, but as I got to, like, 2 months in, I felt a lot more comfortable going out and doing things. So, not that it was a vacation or I was doing anything crazy fun, but I would go to my mom's house or go out to brunch with Austin's family members and just get out of the house, make it a point to get out of the house during the day. And I think that was so beneficial for me because staying in the house with him all day long was a lot.
Yeah.
And I also would go on walks with my friends that lived around the corner. So that honestly just was such a great time for me. Going back or going into a second child, I would feel a lot more comfortable. I feel like the second time around, now that I've been through that, because I felt so uneasy, uncomfortable, like I didn't know what to do. Like I did know what to do, but I was learning every day as I went. So it was very
Yeah.
like uneasy on going on another vacation or going and doing things because I just needed to be prepared. I felt like the hardest part for me was the transition back to work, and not necessarily like physically going back to work, but the daycare. What am I going to do with Axel? I remember crying the first day when Axel was with my mom and I was working, and I was just like, I don't want to be away from him. Like, I was just crying so much. And
Yeah.
that separation was hard, very hard in the beginning. And my priorities had changed. He was more important to me. So when things came up at work or things came up outside of my priority of him, it did allow me to relax in terms of those situations. Like, unless someone's dying, I don't need to like react and stress out about it. But it then, it like my priorities just shifted and things were important at different times because he was my sole focus. I think overall my experience was really good with parental leave. I think we were very blessed to even be able to have that much time and have it paid. And trying to find or have parental leave that's even paid is hard. And some companies offer more than 16 weeks, some companies offer less. So I think it's something that you should always be aware of if you are trying to get pregnant, what your company does have and what will be offered to you. I think that's it from my experience.
I wanted to touch on because you talked about returning to work. And I just wanted to touch on my experience returning to work because I think it was a little a little different. I think my problem with returning to my job at that time, I was just very unhappy in my role and where I was in my job. So I was dreading the return to work and had so much pent up anxiety around working a job I didn't like and not being able to be present during the day anymore with my daughter. But on the flip side of that, I would say I was extremely lucky to work remotely. I've worked remotely since I've returned to work after having Eleanor, and that I think eased a little bit of that anxiety of leaving her because I wasn't actually leaving her, and also obviously she was staying with Rob, so I knew she was in good hands. But the fact that I get to see her throughout the day, and Rob involves me in like everything, so he'll be like, "Oh, look what she's doing," and he like calls me down and that kind of thing. But it's so difficult, that return to work, and I think a lot of companies, I don't wanna say a lot of companies, because I don't know for sure. But I would say I know our company at the time had like a return to work policy where you could do like a slow return to work. Now, they weren't necessarily going to pay you during that time, but you could always see if that's something that your company has that allows you to slowly return to work instead of just being thrown into 5 days away from your family. You might be able to like do a slow move into work again.
Yeah, I think having that flexibility, like with your employer or a general understanding with your manager is key because if you do work remotely, do you have the flexibility to go to their baby appointments? Even if you're not remotely, can you go? And I think that is just key when you are making that transition back to work because work's always going to be there, but your baby needs you at some point in time. And I think that was very hard for me. Like going back to work was generally okay because like it wasn't that I didn't enjoy what I was doing. I think it was harder for me to have that separation, knowing that I didn't have Austin like you had Rob at home. So like I didn't, like he was with a babysitter, which was totally fine, totally perfect. And he was at my house, but it was still like I wasn't down there making him laugh.
Yeah.
Someone else was. So that was difficult.
It was difficult in the beginning too for me. I don't know if you felt this way because I know Axel was at home in the beginning. But if I would hear her cry, it was like a visceral response, and I felt like I needed to go and soothe her, even though I was at work. And I think this created some tension between Rob and I because I think it made him feel like I didn't think he was capable. But it wasn't even that. It was just like a natural response that was happening with me. And it was just so hard to not be there and not like be the one to
Mhm.
attend to those things even though I'm like in the area, you know what I mean? That was very difficult.
It is hard because my initial reaction is like I want to hug him and get him to stop crying. And like when Austin would take care of him and he was crying, like I just wanted to stop it, but I had to like hold back to make it not like I was like, hey,
Mhm.
you need to do it this way. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Oh, fun. Parental leave. Anything else you want to add? I wonder what this will be like with kid number 2 for us, like what parental leave will look like with a second child. I'm similar to you where I imagine I might be a little bit more flexible because I kind of know what to expect, but I don't know. So,
Very different. It'll be very different, but fun. It'll be good. Positive vibes, Megan.
Yes, always positive vibes. You know me, I don't know why sometimes like the unknown, I'm just like, oh, it's gonna be terrible.
No, it's hard not to think that way too. I have to keep retraining my brain not to think of the what ifs. What ifs.
Hmm. Yeah, the what ifs. Yeah, it doesn't help going back to our first episode. All the just wait.
Hmm. Well, I think that is our topic for today with parental leave. And I think we covered everything. I don't have anything else to add. What mom era are you in this week?
My mom era, and I think this is going to be my mom era for a couple months, is encouraging Eleanor to walk. Now, I'm not intervening like a ton, but when we did go to her 15-month checkup, our pediatrician essentially said if she isn't walking by 18 months, that we'll probably have to start physical therapy. And I know Eleanor is going to hate that. So I asked her, I'm like, what things can we do to encourage walking? And it was really interesting because she's like, what are you doing now? And I said, well, we're not really doing anything, but she does use like her walker toys. She does completely fine with that. She like walks on furniture. And she told us that walker toys can sometimes cause issues with walking because their center of gravity is not correct and they tend to like lean forward because that's how they're pushing with the momentum
Mm.
versus actually standing up straight and walking. And you can definitely see that with Eleanor where she kind of leans forward. So what they said to do is that we could kind of hold her by the top of her shirt on her shoulders and kind of have her walk that way. So her center of gravity is up and she's like actually using her legs to propel her forward. So we've been trying to do that, but the thing is, she doesn't seem very interested. Like sometimes she'll be standing on a piece of furniture and I'll be like so close to her where I could physically go and grab her. And I'll be like, walk to mama. And she's like, no, no. And then she like, sits down and crawls away. But I'm like, do you want to try to walk? She's like, no. So that's where we're at. We're not trying to like intervene too much. I guess just trying to encourage a little bit more movement so we don't have to do physical therapy. And if we do, we do. But that's kind of where we're at. What about you?
Every baby has their own timeline anyways too, so I'm sure she'll be walking before then.
Yeah.
Axel is taking so he was very similar to Eleanor where he would like sit down instead of like walking. Like he would stand up and then if he had to like get somewhere he'd sit down and crawl. And I would say we're in our taking steps mom era now because we did a lot of that in Florida where like my mom would sit like probably like 2-3 feet away and then I would stand there and hold his finger or his hands. I'm barely even holding him. He's just hanging on to my finger, right? Half the time it's by one hand and he will take the steps and then he'll fall into them. So he'll take like 2 or 3 steps and then fall into whoever is on the other side. And he did end up taking a few steps like without hanging on to anyone
Yay.
before he would get to the next person. And so that was really good. And now, like yesterday, he climbs up on all the boxes and like walks around the house. And he literally was hanging on to the dining table and then like lets go and like takes a step towards me and like reaches. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're doing it on our own now. We're getting risky.
Aw.
So, so yeah, I mean, just like doing that, I think it was like 5 days. We just did it every day, multiple times. And now he is just taking steps on his own. So we would hold the back of his shirt, or I would hold his arms up a little bit
Mhm.
and just hold them right here. And then I would let go of one if he started to walk and just hold on to one. But yeah, so hopefully we'll be walking here shortly, but who knows? He might have his own timeline as well.
That's so exciting. I'm so excited for Axel. I'm hoping at least she's doing it. This is my own preference. I don't care when she walks, in
Hmm.
terms of her development. I just want her to be healthy. But in terms of like summer activities, there's so many things I want to do. I want to go to playgrounds and have her be able to kind of play more independently, where she can like crawl and climb up stuff without us having to hold her or be physically right there. So I just want that for summer for my own kind of enjoyment. And we have so many places we want to go and see this summer that I think she would enjoy more as a walker. But I'm just going to encourage and let whatever happen. And hopefully we follow in Axel's footsteps and get some steps in soon. But oh, that's so exciting. I'm so excited for him.
It was so cute. Remy, like, he does this thing where he's like, Bitsy boots blast off and he like takes off running, right? And so had Axel, like I was holding his arms up and he was following him and he's on his little tippy toes like just slowly going after him and then he would get closer to Remy and he would go faster. And I'm like trying to run to keep up with
Oh,
him. It was so cute yesterday.
how cute.
Yeah.
How freaking cute. I'm sure it helped being around like older cousins who are like walking around and him seeing that.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and our friend Scarlett, she's already walking. She's 2 months behind Hudson? So 4 months behind Axel? Yeah. Dang.
Wow.
She's a rock star.
Yeah, that was like one of my high school friends, her second child. I don't even know what month it was, but it was so early. that he was walking. Like, he was walking, I believe, before Eleanor was even crawling, if I
Hmm.
remember
Dang.
correctly.
Yeah. No, it's crazy how they're all different.
Yeah, very, very, very different. But okay, thank you everybody for tuning in to this week's episode on parental leave. I hope everybody out there gets a year of parental leave off in the future if they
Yes.
didn't with their last. But I hope everybody was just as lucky as us and got that bonding time. And if not, I truly feel for you. Feel free to reach out to us on our socials. Our Instagram handle is Alyssa.
At momera_podcast.
Follow us on Instagram. We post reels and updates, and we'll keep you updated on our new episodes. You could also email us at momerapodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah. And thanks for tuning in. We hope you all have a good week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.